wonderful guests of honor. They are running just a smidge behind with photo ops, so they will be joining us momentarily, but Kevin's here.
Hey everybody, how you doing today? You all right? So excited to be here, here in Orlando with you all, and holy heck, that line was something this morning. It's like blown away. Well, I love you guys. It's like I wouldn't have the greatest job ever without the greatest fans ever. So, that means the world to me. Seriously, I mean, 'cause, yeah, we're coming up on 40 years.
Okay, let's start things off with how did you first get started doing the kind of work that you do?
When I was very young, grew up in a really small town in Maine, not a lot of stuff to do, and really fell in love with children's books. Dorothy Seuss and P.D. Eastman and Go Dog Go and all that kind of stuff. And I just loved the combination of being able to tell stories with words and pictures. And I felt like, even at that young age, if I could think of it, dream about it, draw it, I could tell any kind of story I want, past, present, future. And that's really got me hooked on drawing and telling stories. And then I found comic books. Much to my parents' mortification, they were, when I was saying I read so many comic books and I traced everything in comic books, I drew comic books all the time, like not doing my chores, not doing my homework, not doing that stuff. And I think my parents were quite sure they'd have one of those kids that never moved out of the basement. Almost didn't but that was my passion, and it really was the same philosophy as one of my main heroes was a guy named Jack Kirby. You probably all know very well. Him and Stan created pretty much the whole Marvel universe and many other things. And that's what I loved with Kirby. He didn't draw just one thing, he drew lots of things. And it was the same concept of, if you could think about it and you wanted to tell a story, past, present, future, you could do it. And that was just the dream, and I was hooked. I drew all the time. And then I met Peter Laird, who was the same thing. We bonded immediately over Jack Kirby. He was really our hero and our idol. Inspiration, and we bonded over Kirby, and we immediately formed a studio called Mirage Studios. It was a Mirage because it was our living room. We didn't have a studio. Actually, it's funny, at that time I didn't even have a desk, a drawing table, and an overstuffed easy chair I found out on somebody left it on the lawn and said free. So I had this overstuffed chair and I had a lap board. And the origin of the Turtles, some of you probably have heard the story, if you haven't, Peter was, we had the studio, so we teaming up, doing sketches and concepts and sending samples out to everybody, getting stacks of rejection letters. And I had this idea, I said, if Bruce Lee was an animal, what would be the stupidest animal? Fast movie martial artist, slow movie turtle. It was a natural joke that made me laugh, and so I did this sketch. It's actually something like that. The first turtle was Michelangelo, even before he was named Michelangelo. And I put it on Peter's desk and I said, this is going to be the next big thing with a big laugh, ha ha ha. And he loved it. He did a sketch, changed some things, improved some things, and I thought, well, if one, why not four? Kind of like the Fantastic Four, each of them with a different personality and trait. So I did this pencil sketch, 4 turtles, each with a different weapon, masks on, and I did this comic book logo that said Ninja Turtles. And then when he did the inky part of it, he had a Teenage Mutant to the title, and we indeed looked at it and said, this is the stupidest thing we've ever seen, but we love it. And we really need to, we love it so much that we have to come up with a story that tells how these characters got to be the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and that was in early 1984. And so we came up with the idea, the origin story, wrote the first issue, drew the first issue, and then in an early form of crowdfunding, I had a really awesome uncle that loaned us $1,200, which is enough to print 3,000 comic books, and that was issue 1, and it came out May of 1984, May 5th, 1984, 40 years ago next year.
We're going to pivot just a little bit. So, Kevin, what are some of your fandoms? And have you had the opportunity to meet some of your idols here at any conventions?
I want to meet Jerry Mathers. Grew up as a huge fan of Sabir. I was like, gee, Wally. No, and all kidding aside, that was one of my favorite shows. But no, I'm a big fan of pop culture, everything. I grew up on Star Trek, Star Wars, of course, lots and lots of comics, and that's always been such a great time when you actually get to meet some of the guys that created some of the inspirations, and I get to thank them in person. It's such a treat. And you know, when I come to these shows, and I'm, you know, if I was frustrated about anything, it's like if I was sitting on my table with you in my line, I'd be out there in a line to see somebody else with you guys. Because I love this stuff. It's inspirational, and you know, I feed off. You know, even to this day, it's like pop culture is it. I love it all. This, you know, uber consumer. You know.
Is there anyone you haven't gotten to meet yet that you still would really like to?
Oh man, that's a really good question. We've been very lucky that we have met a number of people. Actually, one of the treats recently was actually that's that long ago. Was before COVID. I met Charlie Cox, who was played Daredevil in the Daredevil live action TV series. And Daredevil was one of my favorite characters growing up, and I thought after all this time, he was one of the ones that actually made it really work, and that story worked as a character. Actually, I did a big fan of Keanu Reeves, really since Matrix. Remember when that movie came out? I think I watched The Matrix about 1,000 times. And actually was invited to do a cover for his Berserker comic series last year. But I'd say if I had to pick someone, I'd like to meet Keanu. I hear he's like an actual really great guy.
Any questions from the audience? You were first. You were just shot right up.
I had really bad neighbors, and so I figured if I had a tank, I'd just drive out and park in front of it. No, I'm kidding. Actually, it's a funny story, is that when I was growing up, I liked a lot of different kinds of comic books, and there was this one comic book called The Haunted Tank. DC Comics put it out, and in the Haunted Tank, it was a tank crew that was haunted by the ghost of a general named Jeb Stewart, and they had this M15A Stewart light tank named after Stewart. And so I was on a movie set once, and I was talking to this guy that provided vehicles for the movie, all kinds of movies, you know, race cars, sports cars, military vehicles and stuff. And I was joking with him. I said, he said, whatever you need, I have it. I said, do you have a tank? Ha ha ha. And he goes, oh yeah. And I said, really? I said, what do you got? And he goes, well, I had this tank that I rebuilt and refurbished for a movie called, this actually is a World War II era tank, 1945, and it was used in a movie called Red Dawn. Remember that? The original one with Patrick Swayze and all that stuff. And it was an M15A Stewart light tank. How much? And it was $35,000 back in those days. So I bought it, and I indeed actually lived out in the country of Massachusetts. I had about 12 acres, so it was fully operational. I could drive it around the woods. It did actually terrorize the neighborhood. that weird turtle guy's got a tank.
Did you do any maintenance work with it? Just like using it to landscape or?
That'd be funny. But it's actually in addition to one. Actually, many years ago after that, I actually opened a comic book museum, and I bought the Batmobile, the original Michael Keaton from the Batman movie. And that was one I both have ended up in museums. I've donated it to museums since then. Uh-oh, here comes trouble.
Uh-oh. There's one. There's two.
There they go. Here they are, the legends. They turn around and left.
They're all here for you. Hey, come on, here we go. Come on, friends, come on down.
I thought we were... Well, this is now it's officially
Townsend Mary Cam, welcome! Kevin just introduced himself as Peter there. Welcome, welcome.
You know, Kevin, you have to do all the wisecracks now because Rob isn't here.
Rob isn't here, so
I
it's
don't
your
think I
job.
can never live up to the legend of Rob Paulson. Oh, come on. But,
You can do the smart ass, can't you?
so tested one, I mean, you know, we'll play the dating game. If we went on a date, what would be next?
Wait.
What would be the perfect scenario?
Let me
Do you
answer.
just wine and dine, or is it just a, no?
Later.
Later. So, hey guys, you guys know who these guys are? Yeah, well,
I guess you've heard that a time or two.
no, what's funny is just before you guys got here, we were going over some of the early history of Turtles. We got to the comics, and this young lady asked about the tank that I had at one time, and I had to terrorize the neighbors. So we were just getting to the evolution of Turtles from comics into the cartoon show, and what is so fascinating, well, I love these guys for so many reasons, besides they're the sweetest, nicest, and coolest guys, but these guys put voices to our characters. Peter and I, when we wrote them, when we were doing the comics, we had our own little voices in them, but nothing, you know, until finally when you heard it,
You heard us, you went,
No.
fire every one of them. And this theme song, who's this Chuck Lorre guy? He's never gonna go anywhere.
Some wannabe.
You guys know that story, right?
Do you know that story?
I don't
That
know it.
Chuck Lorre, who of course was the executive producer and created Big Bang Theory and How I Met My Mother, all these great shows, a multi-billionaire guy, wrote the theme song to our cartoon show.
And you didn't know that? Oh, you do know, yeah. And,
Just messing.
and he performed it, and he also did, if you remember the theme song where, like, Michelangelo, the party do, party! Yeah, all those little extraneous voices, that's Chuck.
Wow.
It was so neat. We were lucky enough. Have you
How
guys-
did he get that gig?
Well, that's what he was doing, and I thought it was an interesting bit in 2.5 Men when he had Charlie Sheen with that Charlie Waffles character, the children's musician. But that actually is what he did when he started. He was writing jingles for commercials, jingles for that was just trying to get into the business. And Courtney and I were lucky enough to meet him. We were invited to watch a taping of The Big Bang. And I got to sit in Sheldon's spot. Courtney and I. But we got to meet Chuck, and we just said, what a great thing, and it was fantastic. So remember when I think they sent 3 tapes, and I think he did all of them, 3 different versions of the song. We just remember hearing his, and even Peter was like, "This is it. This is great." And
So were you active in choosing the voices?
everything. Yeah, we chose everything. Honestly, we did. We were even Fred Wolf has a different spin on it, but he's
Of course he
crazy,
does.
crazy.
We won't go into that too deeply, but
We'll be
all
here till
agree.
5 just going over the problems with
Well,
Fred
we
Wolf.
are honored, Mr. Creator.
We are.
Well-
Mr. God figure. To be here, not only with you now, but to have brought us on this insane
Oh, thank
journey.
you. No, well,
Truly.
No, seriously, yeah.
And I just want to know who was your first choice for Leonardo? who wasn't available?
Richard Burton was the first choice. So he set up for Ken. No, we had to put a shout out to Peter Laird officially because he's the original co-creator. We couldn't have done it. I couldn't have done what I did without Peter. It was this wonderful moment, this wonderful time. We were very lucky in those early days with, we were inspired. I mentioned Jack Kirby, who was a big inspiration when we were growing up as creator / co-creator of most of the Marvel Universe. And we felt so lucky and so honored that a hero like Jack not only oftentimes didn't get to participate in the furtherance or the exploration of cartoons and movies and things like that with his characters and profit from them. And so we knew how lucky we were that when we had control over creation that was all ours. And to be able to say, we will not approve a TV episode without us reading it and approving it, and the voices and the theme songs, because we wanted that kind of control. We didn't want them to say, "Hey, wouldn't it be funny if they were sloths and not turtles, or they were something else?" And so, even when the agent we talked to, we had in those days, he said, "You'll never get that right." And he said, "Well, then we won't do it." We wanted to be comic book artists, and if we can't go forward in a way that we have control of our characters, we would do it. So we were very lucky and very cocky, naive, and very, very
Youth will do that.
Yeah.
We were much younger
Seth
then.
Rogen here right now. So.
What's that crazy? crazy? Isn't that awesome? It's one that's been so amazing, this journey, because, how many episodes?
193.
Wow.
And do you guys know that one of the things that was one of my most exciting moments out of San Diego Comic-Con this year is Paramount let me announce that finally all those episodes are coming back to TV. I think
Yeah.
Paramount Plus.
What's that about?
And Nickelodeon, and
Yep. So Nickelodeon, Paramount got the rights to all those original episodes, and so they're going to start putting them on. I think they'll do Paramount Plus and Hulu and a bunch of other things. So now we all get to see them all again.
And a whole new generation
In
can
a whole new
decide whether it holds up after 35 years.
Well, ask these guys. It's funny. 'Cause even a gentleman was here today with his daughter, I think, and he was saying that he loved them originally, and as their child got interested in them, they fell in love with the original series.
we hear that so often,
Yeah.
with the DVDs, and now, of course, it being on the air, but with the DVDs, all you folks out there who are, 40, 45, and you got your own families now, and you're raising your kids on the DVDs, it's such a joy. I mean, it really is to meet you guys and to meet your families, especially when you show up in the Ninja Turtle outfits and you got the little 3-year-old and in a
I gotta tell
onesie
you,
or whatever. It's
Something else.
Yeah, there you go.
When I was growing up, I don't know about the rest of you guys, cartoons were not a family affair. Maybe the Flintstones or the Jetsons.
Yep.
But you couldn't get me out of bed for school. But Saturday morning, I'm up at 6:30 with a bowl of sugar bombs and watched everything. But I'm by myself. And I think most kids were not. But it is so cool to hear from so many of you that it is a family affair. Who saw that coming? It just makes my heart keep beating.
It really is, and because I always say that, people ask, did you know? Actually, the gentleman was up at the table and he said, so did you know this was going to be this big when you first started doing it? I said, oh yeah, of course, Peter and I knew, hands down. We were, I think I had 3 jobs as well as drawing the comics. We were worried about paying next month's rent, but we
What
loved
were your
the
jobs?
I worked in an art store. I worked in a restaurant called Horse Feathers. It was in Dover, New Hampshire, where we created the turtles. But my favorite job was part-time, but I had it 2 days a week, and I worked at it's called the In-Town Motel. No-Tel Motel. No, it wasn't. No, it was an In-Town Motel, and I loved it because I had the 11 to 7 shift. And so I'd sit at the front and
11 p.m.
11 p.m., yeah, to 7 in the morning. And so I could draw all day. So I'd sit there at the desk, wait, check in the occasional drunk person, and send them off to the room, and then I'd sit there and draw.
And you were a dental hygienist, I think, at that time too, right?
And a flight attendant, hygienist, part-time gardener. There's a bit of everything, but it is.
Like a jack of all trades.
Yes, and that's I grew up in a very small town in Maine, and grew up along the coast, and we had Memorial Day to Labor Day to make enough money to survive the winter if we could, and so I cooked a lot of lobsters for tourists, stuff like that. But no, anything you wanted, you worked for it. How about you guys? What were some of your first jobs? I want to hear what you guys started because you've done voices.
I was 3.
It's true. Yeah, there was a child actor.
Well, 4. When I was 3, I won an amateur contest on television. So
Awesome.
it was a show called the Ted Mack Amateur Hour, and I did that show. And then when I was 4, I went on a show that featured kid talent. So I was the youngest on the show, and another person who became kind of a 50s recording icon, Connie Francis. She was the oldest person on the show. I was the youngest person on the show at 4. It was called Start Time. And that was my first job. Yeah.
Well, besides the paper route, my first real job was I was scooping ice cream at Baskin Robbins. When I was 15.
Well, I can't beat Barry's age of 3, but likewise, come close. At the age of 6,
Yeah.
my family started our TV show, The King Family, and the only day of straight, how do you say that? Day of straight day of work? What?
I don't say it that way, but
How do you, straight job. There you go, straight job.
Legal
I-
employment.
I didn't get paid, but a friend needed some help at the Halloween shop at Sears. And it was in downtown LA, And since I speak fluent Spanish, I was able to help out, and I went, ooh, cash register, look, button. And the saddest part was people coming in Halloween, and the kids going, I want to be this, and I'm looking at the shelf going, how about a pitchfork and alligator tail? But that's the only time I've been behind a cash register.
No, it's
So
funny.
did you know that people would be you on Halloween for the next
Years
35 years?
Funny little side note, with my family's TV show back in the mid-1960s, a couple of kids came dressed to our house, not knowing who we were, as us. One of our costumes was we had these white sweaters with our names across it and white pants. And a couple of girls came as a couple of my cousins and blah, blah, blah. And we're like, guys, it's us. I mean, it's not us, but it's us. So that was pretty trippy.
That's awesome. That's funny you mentioned Connie Francis. There's a lot of people that ask, like, where's
She was the original Leonardo, right?
She was original April.
Original April.
No, but that was when we had things. People said, "Where did you come up with terms like cowabunga?" And you guys have said radical cowabunga a billion times in your life. And that was I grew up in, like I said, a small town in Maine, and I remember watching this TV movie, which I thought was filmed in a different planet. It was called Beach Blanket Bingo.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nat Furnicello, Frankie Avalon, and just those guys up there, and I'm like going, what the? And it's like, hang 10, dude, cowabunga, and they're all dancing on the beach, and I was like, that's like, oh my god.
Yeah, maybe that's how you got the surfer talk.
That's how they get the surfer talk. That was a lot of that was David Wise brought that. David and Patty brought that originally, but I loved it. It was like all the we just cowabunga, and then Bart Simpson stole it from. No.
So I guess I have a question that only you can answer because I'm constantly asked it and I can't answer it because I don't remember. I don't think I was ever called Donnie on our version of the series.
Wow.
I don't think I was ever called Leo.
And I don't think I was ever called Mike.
So when did that start?
That's a really good question. No, I think you're right. I think it was always
Sort of a later iteration of
Donatello or Raphael or
Mikey, I think maybe. Yeah, I think.
And here's a little niggling detail question because
we got the guy,
right.
you know.
So
We're just as
originally-
fascinated to have him as you are.
So originally, Michelangelo was spelled like Michael, Machael, Angelo, and then that changed to Michel, Angelo, somewhere along the way. And
Is that a secret message from outer space? Or?
It's funny before you guys got here. I was telling these guys about all the homework and paying attention to school. I missed out in how many great drawings I had taken away during when I was supposed to be paying attention in English class. I was doing something else. So Peter and I had this idea when we named the characters after Renaissance artists. Leonardo came first, Michelangelo second, Raphael in that basically that order. And then Donatello was actually a discussion for about 2 weeks because he was almost named Bernini. Because I like Bernini as a sculptor, but Peter and I
Bernie.
But both Peter and I hated doing the lettering. He was a much better speller than I was, so both Peter and I hated doing the lettering, but my handwriting was neater, and so he let me do it. So all those years of not paying attention to English, Michelangelo, Michael.
So it's just your bad, poor spelling.
It was my bad poor spelling. We were at some show, and it's like, because even the Michelangelo one shot, the Christmas special, and it's got the misspelling on the cover, and somebody said, you spelled Michelangelo wrong, and I went, we do? And he goes, yeah. And I said, so you knew? And he goes, yeah. But they thought it was funny. I said, you let me embarrass myself all these years by misspelling Michelangelo?
Kevin, have you seen the Picasso turtle that's floating around? It would have been hard to animate. They got a Pablo Picasso as the fifth turtle, and it's like his eyes are here and his arms over here.
That's it. It's funny. I've seen and I don't think they did a Picasso NASA one, but it was one of the great honors, especially in the early years of the Turtles, when we get parodied by Mad Magazine. When they finally did the Alfred E. Newman as a turtle on the cover. But on the back, one of the regular artists that would do these, funny little bits, and it was the other turtles that weren't. So they had like a Matisse and a Van Gogh and some other. So I wonder if they did. I have to pull it up.
The turtles that didn't make it.
That didn't make it.
As long as we're asking you questions, Kevin.
Well,
Since
you're
this
gonna have
is-
to be real fast.
Oh, shoot.
Oh, we're running
already?
good times. We're running.
Okay,
We're
then-
running.
What time are we done?
So soon.
Okay.
20 minutes ago.
Go ahead, Kevin.
How many minutes do we have left?
3.
Oh shit, never mind. I'll ask you privately.
You guys can all go on strike if you want.
So are we done too? We're done. So,
Everybody's got-
so let's take one question then from folks.
One. Oh, now you're making it.
Barry said it. So
Well,
we
I
got
know, but someone has a right to ask questions.
Front row, center.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, you know the story I was going for earlier, but we're out of time. So, okay. It was a toss-up. You know this, right? Between who is Mikey and who is Leonardo. At the very beginning, literally, they tossed a coin to see which of us was going to be Leo or Mikey.
Oh, no way.
And
Really?
we were. Oh, you don't know this?
No, I didn't know that.
The first
And-
recording session,
Yeah.
they hadn't decided between the two of us who we were going to play.
And they
So-
said after the first rehearsal, after break, we'd switch. Because I wanted to be Mikey. All these people know this. So I came back into the room and I go, so we're going to switch, right? And they're like, yeah, no, we're good. But you said you were going to switch.
So we did one pass with me as Michelangelo to begin, and Cam as Leonardo, and then after the break, we just never switched. I said, well, so now you want me to do Leonardo? And he said, no, just keep it the way it is for now. We'll worry about it later. And I'm like, later? How is that going to happen? Okay, fine. So I ended up doing Michelangelo again, and then for the next 10 years.
So, who did you choose for Michelangelo?
Yeah, I'm really curious.
Well, see,
I'm staying out of this. I'm staying out of this.
So I think that, this is what I remember, because it's like, they sent us in the samples, and we liked the sound of all the voice, the ones that we found, said, this sounds great, but I think it was what it was originally. But then, when we didn't get to see it in its, in motion until we got the sample tapes of because they only did 5 episodes originally.
Right.
And so when we got them in, there was no music, there was no final edits, there was no music, it was just the voices. So that's the first time we actually saw them in that form. Besides saying this one, you're Donatello, and so it's the first time.
But you could have let me try Michelangelo!
Yeah, and my Michelangelo, I just ripped it off from Cam.
The original Valley Boy. Yeah, thank you.
Well,
Well, I think so.
y'all,
You
I
guys-
am
we
so
guys-
sorry to have to cut this off.
I know,
I hate
honestly,
it.
we had such an awesome time at the table signing with you all, and I know we're going back there soon. And where are you
Yes.
guys from here? Because I think we're doing photo ops, and then you guys are
We're going to the
Go
table.
back to
we're
our
doing
table.
the table. And so I'm doing photo
We're
ops.
just
So
trying
if you
to-
got
we're gonna-
questions,
We're gonna
Just
try
come
and
on
I'm asking.
we're gonna try and steal some of your line.
Yeah.
We gotta end though.
Thank you.
Everybody.
On the count
So
of
here we
three.
go. On the count of 3, turtle power. You ready? 1, 2, 3.
See you soon.